Change these now, and they're all cropped images. I want to make a file that's going to hold all of these in a matrix style where they're a mosaic and there's going to be images right next to each other, butted up against each other. I want to make a new file, Command N, new file. That is very specific, right? We cropped very specific things. We now need to make a new document that is very specific. I'm changing to pixels because we cropped our images in pixel dimensions. I'm going to create a new file that is very specific. This new file is going to be and house all of our cropped images that we just created. I'm going to change my dimensions to pixels because we've cropped in pixels. I'm going to change the width to 300 pixels, the height to 300 pixels, and I'm going to keep the resolution at 72 because we've cropped these images to 72 pixels per inch. I'm going to hit create. It looks like that new file is tied to that last file that we created, so I'm just going to tear that away from the original. And I'm going to start to pull in each of these pictures into this new area, this new file. And I'll start with this one. All I'm going to do is take my move tool, click, hold, and drag, and release inside of my new file. And there it is. I can now close this or minimize this. I'm just going to set that off to the side. I can do this next one, click, hold, and drag, and there's my next one. Notice that everything's brought in on its own layer, which is nice. Click and drag this one, drop it in. Click and drag this one, let it drop in. That may not have gone. There we go. And now I can start to rearrange these. Notice that by default, they are snapping, their edges are snapping to the edges of one another, which is nice for us because it will make it easier to compose. And snapping is nice because they kind of lock in magnetically. And if I zoom in, we can kind of see that happen. Everything starts to get blurry if you zoom in something that's really small. Remember, we've cropped these to 100 pixels, which isn't very big. So if we start to look at these, look at how nicely these edges are butted up against each other. Sometimes if you zoom in, you'll see the mistakes that you've made or the gaps that are created. And it's very easy to make those mistakes. So I encourage you to always zoom in and check to see if you have any gaps. I'm using the space bar, by the way, because I'm zoomed in so much. I'm using the space bar held down to pan through my image. And I can move this one over, and that will snap into place. I can zoom out again. I'm just using Option scroll wheel. Pull in some other images. There we go, that one was being stubborn. Snapping into place. I'll need 2 more. And I can snap those into place, and everything fits as it should. right? Because we've made this file 300 by 300 pixels. Each one of our images is 100 pixels. So if we do the math, that's 3 by 3 and 9 images total. I'm going to go ahead and save this work so I don't lose it. Command S. And I know it's a class exercise. I think it's class exercise 15, but I'm not sure. I just want to make sure I don't lose it. Now I can save out each of these little cropped versions, but they're so easy to do that I'm not going to, so I'm just going to close out everything. A quick way to close out a lot of files really fast is to hold down Alt Option and hit the red button or the close button. And I don't want to save anything, so I'm just going to hit Don't Save. And when you do that, it closes down every single file you have. And in this case, since we cropped, it's going to ask us to save, but we don't want to save. So